Welcome to the Lighthome Sustainable Design podcast series. We talk with the architects and builders about green design and homes that really suit the way we love to live. I'm Amanda Faulkner, and we're here today with another one of our design ambassadors, Ed Ewers, who's talking to us about his latest choice of a Lighthome demonstration project, one designed by Melbourne architect Matt Gibson, and it's a lovely renovation in an inner city suburb of Melbourne in Flemington. So Ed, why did you choose this project?
This home really is a good example of lightweight construction, inner city sort of renovation and revitalisation. It's just efficient, contemporary, respectful, and pretty damn good as well.
And it certainly looks great. But saying that, it's something that really only hints at what's behind when you look at it from the street, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's another one of its strengths, I think. Flemington's a fairly historical suburb which has a pretty good building housing stock from the turn of the century and quite strict heritage overlays. And what you see is the respect of that, but then, the wow factor on the sides and at the rear.
And you talked a little bit before about being very respectful. So just talk about how they've married old and new, because the new does look very new, doesn't it?
Well, the new is new. There's no doubt. It's out there, and even you get a glimpse of recent renovations to the adjoining properties in one of the shots, which are perhaps a little more predictable and a little more plain. But what Matt's managed to do is clean up the original home, show it off for what it is, and then contrast that with this, pretty crisp box that ticks lots of boxes.
So let's talk about some of the boxes that it actually does tick. What would you say they are?
Well, it's just so efficient, and I use that word to cover a whole bunch of different aspects. The framing and structure of it is really efficient. It's simple, lightweight, stick frame. Obviously, there's some steel for the cantilever and bits and pieces, but it's really efficient. There's no excess in anything. It's efficient in its sustainability. There's recycled timber. There's FC sheet or scion cladding done very cleverly, and even the planning. There's no excess of decadence in room allocation and space, but you have a real sense of a lot of space because of the height of the box, and because the box embraces the outside, and the living space extends out through that deck. And then there's another efficiency in the service spaces, like a garage and the laundry. They're plugged on the side of the building, so the building again is protected, and then that central, open living space is really not front and center, but is really the best part about what you're looking at.
And so did that efficiency also mean that it was a reasonably cost-effective renovation to build?
Look, I do know that it was a very modest budget, and they have managed to perform miracles in my eyes. What they've done for their money is pretty impressive.
So aside from the planning, they also made an interesting material choice, didn't they? Because it's scion matrix cladding that's used on the outside of the building, and at first glance I thought it really looked like Zinc-A-Loom, so I was a bit surprised.
Yeah, and look, Amanda, a lot of architects come across scion matrix as a fallback from more expensive materials that we just can't afford in some of our projects. Indeed, that's the way I came across it some years ago with a similar thing. The client's brief here was to use zinc, but in value engineering, matrix stood up on its own, and the zinc got the Kyber. And what they've done that I really like is they've really accentuated the vertical by cutting the scion into narrower strips, and then there's another clever detail in cutting strips and turning them perpendicular to the main sheets. and they just provide a texture to the wall.
It looks fabulous, actually, that particular aspect of it. And it's very rich, isn't it, against the timber? And the timber is something that also continues, right through into the inside.
Yeah, look, that again, that's that's a very deliberate move, and that enhances the outdoor space because it makes you feel like you're out. It makes the outdoor space under that cantilever really an extension of the living room.
And so, was there any particular consideration to sustainability aspects in this home, or does it just kind of naturally work reasonably well through orientation or any other means?
Well, it does. It does work well through those things, but what you've got to understand is that the orientation's what you get in a terrace home.
Yeah. Fair point.
Yeah. But by putting those services which have a lower ceiling and less need aesthetically, by putting them to the wings of the building where there are constraints on setbacks and heights, it means that this central core, this big box, can really be taller and more dramatic. The sustainability that Matt's pretty conscious of sustainability when he designs. I know. I'm sure it's really well thermally performing. There's highlight windows placed in the right spot. The aspects to the west are reduced. There's also this really nice respect to the old, where they've kept a face brick wall of the original cottage, and that now becomes an internal wall. And in doing that, they're picking up on an opportunity for a fair bit of thermal mass, which would help the building probably more in summer than winter because of where it sits, but it certainly would help in maintaining a more even, temperate room.
And just so we can understand that role, particularly the thermal mass might play in summer, can you just explain to us, how that would help us in summer?
Well, I hope I can.
I'll put you on the spot there, sorry.
Yeah, you have. Thermal mass, it's embodied energy, which in this case would be heat. So as a building warms up, before the room warms up, we've got to warm up this thermal mass. So in winter, when you fire up a heater, it might take 2 or 3 days to warm up this inner skin of brickwork. And then once it is warm, when you turn your heater off, that will just subtly radiate back into play in maintaining a temperate temperature inside. Conversely, in summer, those bricks are providing a barrier in absorbing heat before it's emitted.
Okay, great. So now, just looking at this building and understanding, what you've said about it in terms of, its efficient planning, but also it's a fairly sort of simple, lightweight structure, notwithstanding the cantilever at the back. Could you have achieved the same effect, do you think, if you'd built this in heavyweight materials, if you built it out of brick, for argument's sake?
I think it would have taken on a completely different dynamic in a masonry product or a heavy massing product, and I don't think it would be you would achieve the same success as it has. What this cladding does, and the style and the use of timber, it really accentuates that vertical, and I think that would be lost somewhat with the other materials.
And just in closing, Ed, is there any final thing that you want to comment on that you think Matt has done particularly well in this renovation?
I just get back to that word efficiency. I just think the planning, the structure, the general efficiency of that building on a tight site is just a lot of bang for your buck.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very, very much, Ed.
Thank you.